Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us for today's ePMP webinar featuring guests from Dimensione and Vistabeam. We're going to take a minute for more people to join, and then we'll get started. Hello again, everyone. We have Cambium Network's Director of Product Management, Bruce Collins. And Bruce, whenever you're ready, you can take it away.
Thanks, Olivia. It's Bruce, as you said, here at Cambium, and thanks everybody for joining the webinar today. We have a great a panel of guests lined up to kind of go through the background and experience that they're having with ePMP 3000. So this is a good opportunity to hear firsthand from users of the 3000 and the experiences that they've had. So we have Giuseppe Soci from Dimensione in Italy is joining us today. We also have Matt Larson and Drew Wicker from Vistabeam in the U.S. Joining the call today. So, and also on the panel, we have Sakit Ahmed, who is the VP of ePMP Business, who will also provide some commentary on the product line itself. So, looking forward to a good discussion here, and maybe I'll just kick it off. Giuseppe, can you introduce yourself and a little bit about what Dimensione does and the history with your company?
Sure. So hello, everyone. This is Giuseppe. I'm the network administrator at Dimensione. We are in Italy, and we are in the market as a WISP since 2007, so it's about 12 years. We are operating in 4 Italian regions: Molise, Abruzzo, Puglia, and Campania. And we have now about 10,000 subscribers, 10,000 customers that are using our services. Not only residential customers, but also business and a lot of municipalities.
Okay, and then Matt and Drew, do you want to comment on Vistabeam and introduce your company?
Sure. Vistabeam's been in business since 2004. We serve some very rural areas of Colorado, Nebraska, and Wyoming. We're about 4,300 wireless subscribers right now. Most of our customers are residential, but we have about 20% commercial and small business customers on our system.
All right. Yeah, thanks. So maybe while you have the mic, can you give us a little background on what you're using with the ePMP 3000, both you know, how you're deploying it, what you're using with the compatibility modes, kind of what the mixture of devices you have out there?
Well, we've got some greenfield deployments where we've got either all ePMP 3000 access points and SMs. We also have greenfield deployments where we've mixed 450M, for example, facing the more populated areas in town, and then ePMP 3000 facing out of town, again with all 300 series SMs. And we've also gone back through our existing network, and where we've had capacity issues with either ePMP 1000 or 2000, we've replaced those access points with 3000. And so there we have a complete mix of Force 200, elevated ubiquity radios, Force 300, and even ePMP 1000 SMs, all connected to the new 3000 access point. So we've got a pretty good mixture.
Okay, great.
Matt, follow-on question. So in the 3000 greenfield, what is the average number of subscribers you have on an access point? Matt, you may be on mute.
Probably about 25 or 30 is the maximum number we've got so far.
And to get to a little bit of the meat of the discussion right off the bat. Can you hear me now? Yeah, we can hear you loud and clear. So 25 to 30 per sector. Are you planning to put more? Are you watching your utilization on that AP? Are you offering higher bandwidth packages? What is the new lay of the land once you put up greenfield 3000s?
So right now we're offering 25 and 50 meg packages. We're hoping to have some 100 meg packages that we will offer in select areas, especially if we've got all 3000 series SMs and access points and enough fiber backhaul to carry the traffic to it. And right now, 25, 30, we will continue to load it up until we see the frame rate get high, and we'll find out kind of where it ends up at that point. But right now, it seems like probably 35 to 40 we're pretty comfortable with. Once we start getting beyond that, we'll look at performance and kind of see where it's at.
Right. And then a very important factor is, are you seeing groupable subscribers and MU-MIMO kicking in at all? Do you have enough congestion, enough bandwidth demand that you're seeing MU-MIMO kick in?
To be honest, we really don't know. We've certainly seen increases in capacity, changing from the 1000 to the 2000 to the 3000. We had capacity access points that we had closed off for new sales that we were able to open back up and onboard new customers. We honestly really haven't watched the MU-MIMO really closely, but we are seeing increases in capacity, and we're able to onboard new customers and deliver the acceptable level of service to them. So it must be working.
Right. So that is, thank you for sharing that. I'll just add a commentary and hand it back to Bruce. So that is something we are looking forward to. And I think as operators deploy more of our 3000 series subscribers, there's going to be two scenarios. One is that, you want to have a decent enough separation that when you go to your monitor wireless page on the groupable SM column, you should start seeing multiple numbers, which indicates that for a particular SM, there are X number of SMs that could be grouped for a MU-MIMO group. So that's step one. So that's something you kind of want to watch and kind of, to see how the network is expanding. But the second thing is that in the throughput chart graph, there is a MU gain performance meter. And I want to remind everybody that at the end of the day, getting MU-MIMO grouping is just one aspect. But ultimately, you really, really need to push data. So you need those group subscribers to be asking for data at the same time for the AP to kick in and do multi-user MIMO. So that's something I think as customers grow, as you bring on more, as the packages you offered are higher, it becomes a reality. Although I have seen that a lot of cases operators are offering larger packages, but that doesn't necessarily translate to home users pulling down. Everybody likes the idea of a 100 meg package, right, Bruce?
Sure.
But your average household doesn't actually pull 100 meg, so that's an interesting thing. Okay.
Yeah. So thanks, guys. Let's swing back to Giuseppe and kind of get your background as well on using the ePMP 3000 and how you're deploying it today. What kind of service packages? That kind of background.
Okay, sure. We started with 3000 equipment about, I think, 6 months ago with some beta testing. We have now more than, I think, 25 access points with 3000. And I can say which is the limit for now because we haven't reached it yet. but I can say we have some sectors with more than 40 users, and which are at very low frame usage on 20 megahertz channel. So I'm very curious to see how many users we can put in there. And we saw a better latency even for 11N clients in backwards compatibility, better sensitivity, so we can achieve higher modulations with the same signal. And we are now connecting both 11N and 11AC subscribers on the same sector without having performance loss. And we tested also greenfield with very good performances. We saw about 100 megs or sometime more on greenfield, and we saw very good upload performances. Even if there is no beamforming uplink support for now, thanks to better sensitivity of the radio. So for us, the experience is very, very positive.
Okay. And are you using any of the Elevate capabilities?
No, we didn't use Elevate because we prefer to use only Cambium subscriber modules because of their radio quality. So we didn't use Elevate.
Okay.
It's our
Good. And then
a choice we made.
yeah, okay, good. So and then well, again, remind me what the packages that you're offering on your residential users?
Sure, we start with a 10 megabits per second package, and we are offering up to 30 megabits per second packages to residential customers, and up to 50 to business customers, and sometimes even more if they ask for more bandwidth. We about multi-user MIMO, you were asking. We saw a good multi-user MIMO grouping, and I can see a good part of the traffic to be in multi-user MIMO mode during peak hours, and in particular during streaming of football events. I tried also to generate some traffic using customers' MikroTik routers, and I can see multi-user MIMO kicks in doing about even 200 megabits per second of real TCP throughput. And I can't say too much about actual gains from 3000 because I have to put more users on sector to push their limits, but this seems to be very promising for us.
Okay.
Giuseppe, how are you monitoring AP throughput consumption? Are you looking at some tool or your core router?
Yes, we are monitoring by using our MikroTik routers, and also our internal system. We developed some internal software to monitor everything. We monitor using SNMP and also with MikroTik routers for bandwidth consumption during peak hours and so on.
So you are speaking from experience in terms of a before and after scenario, right? In your network, you monitored the throughput consumption before 3000 appeared, and then you took some data after 3000 appeared, right? That's what's supporting your statements.
Yes, something like that. I mean, we didn't replace an existing 2000 radio with a new 3000 radio. So I can see too much about seeing the same environment and then the same environment with 3000. So my experience is on new sectors loaded with new customers, or some customers with we replaced their subscriber models with 300 subscriber models to do some greenfield environment. So can't say too much about that.
Understood.
All right, thanks, Giuseppe. And I just want to remind people on the call, if you have questions for the panelists, if you want to put them in the chat window on the webinar interface, we're happy to take a few questions as well. So if you have any thoughts or requests from these guys, it's a good opportunity to hear from people who are using the 3000. I guess maybe switching back to the guys from Vistabeam. Which particular models are you using with the 3000? Are you standardizing on a particular Force 300 model, or do you use different models in different situations?
We've primarily used three models: the 300-16, the dash 25, and then the connectorized, the CSM. Given the distance of a lot of our customers from the access point, we've used a lot of the connectorized. We've had some really good success with that model.
Okay, and then what makes you decide when to use a dash 16 versus a dash 25? Do you know? Do you take both out to the field in the truck, or do you decide ahead of time? I'm gonna need to use this one at this location.
I mean, we have a rough idea based on distance, from the customer to the access point. However, we do carry both models in the truck, and based on the noise floor, sometimes we've had to upsize the antenna to try to, create a better signal to noise ratio. So it's really not static between our, different towers. It really depends on the noise level.
And then I guess here's the big question that people are interested in is, with the latest release of software that we have out there, what's the reliability been with this network?
Oh boy, silence.
Yeah,
it's been pretty good. It's fixed a lot of the issues that we had on earlier firmware versions. We have been having some GPS sync issues. We've got a small sample of our access points losing GPS sync and then disconnecting the customers. So hopefully that clears up soon. It's not it's not across the board, but it's more than we'd like to see.
Okay, and then Giuseppe, what's your thoughts on reliability with the latest firmware?
Okay, during the beta testing, as you can expect from development software, reliability wasn't like it is now. We had some issues with disconnections and some crashes, but it was normal and expected. So initially we tried 3000 equipment on some selected users. But when we saw a reliable platform with early 4.3 builds firmware, we did some greenfield sectors with the actual and new real customers with great results in terms of performances and reliability. And starting from 4.4, I can say we have great stability also on mixed environments, so not only in greenfield environments. And we started to move real users on 3000, and started to replace some subscriber modules with 316 and 325 for customers with a lot of internet activity to benefit from either modulations and multi-user MIMO support. And we have now having great results and no issues at all. So our experience is positive. 4.4 is very stable.
And yeah, just for the audience, we have a 4.4.1 beta release available on our customer support download site. So Zero Touch from CN Maestro is back in, and as well as some additional stability fixes. And then soon after that, we'll probably have a 4.5 beta release out as well with additional features.
All right. Yeah. So thanks for the updates on that. There's a couple questions that have come in on the chat window. one for you, Giuseppe. What is your process when you take a new subscriber module out of the box? What do you do to set it up and take it to the field and install it? What's kind of your provisioning model, I guess, to summarize?
Okay. We are using a custom software we developed internally to provision our new customers, and it provides to the installer all the information about the sector is connecting to, and it helps him to choose the best sector based on its current load and aiming the antenna correctly, calculating which is the signal he should have based on its position catched from GPS, and then it can automatically push to the subscriber modules the correct configuration export with the user data. So it's a custom software, custom process for that.
Do you have so follow up? When you go out there, and do you have a modulation mode in mind for that SM, or do you set some parameters for the installer to say I want to get at least the signal level, or do they have a target signal level?
Yes. We have some target signal level based on the profile the user is activating. So for 10 megabits there is one signal, for 20 megabits there is another signal, target level, and so on. So more the package the user is activating, more the signal we require to our installer.
And do you have customers ask for an upgrade package? They start out on 10 meg and then ask to get more, or do they generally stay with what they initially purchase?
Sure. We are constantly having users asking for upgrades, and our installers try to put new customers also on the higher signal is possible. So we can do upgrades without having to go to the customer.
Okay. And then for new installs, where you have an ePMP 3000 access point deployed, are you only using Force 300 SMs on that, or are you still installing the Force 180 or Force 200 on those as well?
No, we decided to go to Force 300 both for 3000 AP and 2000 AP. So
okay.
No more Force old 11N SM.
Okay, all right, that's interesting. Maybe a similar question to the guys from Vistabeam. What is your provisioning model, and a little background on what is your approach to procuring SMs and selecting SMs going forward?
As far as the provisioning model, we for our 50 megabit packages, we're requiring at least an MCS 9 or better. For our 25 megabit package, MCS 5 or higher. And then as far as SMs, we've stopped buying Force 200s completely as well. We're deploying all Force 300s, whether it be a 1000, 2000, or 3000 access point.
Okay, that's good to know. Interesting. I think we're at that pivot point where the compatibility mode is making that an easier decision. Another one question specifically to you, Matt. You mentioned that you're using the CSM. Which particular antennas are you using with that, and when do you decide to go with the CSM versus the 25?
We're using the parabolic dishes from KP Performance, and we're also using the Ultra dish from RF Elements. Basically, we decide to go, we use whatever antenna we need to create the modulation rates that we're requiring. So if it's a 50 megabit package and we're requiring at least an MCS 9, we'll use whatever antenna we need to create those conditions. We've had some very close shots in town where it's extremely noisy, where we've had to use high gain antenna to create the proper signal to noise ratio, and then of course the modulation rate. We've also got rural deployments where we have customers successfully connected out at 10 miles or more on that 50 megabit package with appropriate modulation rates and signal to noise ratio. So it really just varies from situation to situation.
On that front, since you guys are, Wyoming, Nebraska, Colorado, what is the average deployment distance in your network?
Well, it kind of varies. In some places where we've got a little bit denser population, our radius of coverage is going to be like in the 3 to 5 mile range. And then when we get out into some more rural areas, we've actually successfully connected people up to 10 miles, as long as we've got a connectorized subscriber module with some kind of either a dish or a large grid attached to it. I think the furthest we've had is we tested a 50 meg connection at about 10 miles. And that was with actually an AP1000 connectorized. That was before we had access to the 300 series connectorized. So we're hoping to be able to do some 10-mile radius in a few places where we don't really have a lot of customer density, and we've got an access point in the right location. If we've got something that's up on a hill and visible from a long ways away, then we'll look at probably doing the larger radius. I wouldn't necessarily count on it in all situations. It's got to be fairly rural and not a lot of noise in the area in order to be able to support the speeds that we want to offer, but we have been able to do it.
All right, thanks. And a follow-on question for both of you. Do you see a place for the 3000L in your network? Maybe Vistabeam, go first.
Yes, absolutely. We've already
Sorry, we may have lost you. Could you repeat that? You said absolutely, but were you adding something to it?
Yes, we've already begun. Yeah, we've already begun deploying the L. We've deployed it on Omnis and in a micropop type of deployment. Out in a very rural area where we've got very few customers within a 5 mile radius, we've deployed it on an Omni. We've deployed it on horns to kind of fill in some gaps in coverage, in town on a water tank or something like that. So yeah, we definitely see a place for it, and we've been deploying it steadily every week actually. So
I know, just to add on to that, one place we're probably going to be deploying a lot of them is in, like, we've got a little, we call it a fence post repeater, or we've got these little repeaters that go out into the middle of very rural areas. And we were a CAF2 recipient, and a couple of the counties that we have to serve have very low customer density, where, within 5 miles, there might only be 5 or 6 possible locations. So those are places where we're probably going to deploy a lot of the light version APs, because they will probably not get overloaded at any point in the next 10 years. So that's where we're going to be doing quite a few of those, and that's a kind of a special application case, but I think that's going to be one of the best uses we have for it.
Okay, all right, thanks. And Giuseppe, are you guys using that?
Sure, we have deployed 3000L on small sectors, and we saw good performances from higher modulations and latency. Latency is lower than 2000 and 1000. So in some places we are replacing also some 1000 radio with 3000L radio.
So I guess a similar question on the subscriber module side. If you're going to go out and plan a new tower, it sounds like you're going to either put up a 3000 or a 3000L. Are you deploying any more 2000s at this point?
For us, no. We are deploying only 3000.
Okay. There's well, actually, I was going to comment, just for those of you that are on the call and weren't aware of what the 3000L is, I'll give you a quick summary. It's a 2x2 access point, so it doesn't do the MU-MIMO capability that the full 3000 has, but it still has some of the capabilities that the 11AC Wave 2 technology brings. I mean, it is a 2x2, it's IP67, and it's quite capable with the horn antennas, or as Matt and Drew said, on an Omni. So it's a nice space filler for low density environments. A couple more questions came in on the chat window here. One is more of a question for recommendation from USAKEY. What is the recommended firmware for legacy access points in SM? So what version should they be using today?
Right. So if you are running a pure legacy network, we still recommend you to move to 4.4 release because there are some things around the short guard interval and LDPC that we enabled. So you'll see a little bit of improved performance in a pure legacy network by upgrading to 4.4. And if you happen to have anything hybrid whatsoever, it's absolute necessity that you have both subscribers and AP on the 4.4 release.
And then here's another question. I'll start with you, Giuseppe. Are you using exclusively ePMP, or do you use any of the PMP 450i or 450M platform from Cambium?
No, we are using only ePMP.
Okay, and Matt and Drew, what about you guys?
What was the question again?
Are you using some PMP 450i and 450M in addition to your ePMP network?
Yes, we are. We even have them mixed on the same tower. Only 450M. We do not have 450i.
Okay, all right. And then is there you know, how do you decide which access point to put a subscriber module on between if you have a 450M and a ePMP 3000 on the same tower?
We only basically we point the 450M into the area that has the most potential customers in it. So, like for example, we've got a tower in one of our CAF2 areas, and we analyzed the locations. One direction had several hundred locations versus the other three directions all had less than 50. So the three directions that didn't have as many potential locations, we used 3000, and the one that had a lot more, we used the 450. So in that scenario, 450 is available in one direction and 3000 is available in the other direction. So we do have to kind of make sure our installers know what is actually available and which antennas they should have with them. But that's we've seen really good performance out of the 450M, and you know, we're trying to kind of use the right tool for the right scenario.
Okay, yeah, makes sense. So another question on here, and I appreciate the questions coming in from the audience. This one is really around what is the technique that you're using for authentication for subscriber modules? Specifically, the question was, are you using enterprise authentication for SMs or just PSK and handling authentication in the back end? Does that question make sense?
User authentication.
No, it'd be for SM authentication, SM authentication network. So yeah, so Giuseppe, which mechanism are you guys using for device authentication?
Sure, we are using PSK standard authentication, and then our radio server to authenticate our users.
Okay, yeah.
One question we should open up to both Giuseppe and Vistabeam.
We're doing the same thing.
Oh, okay.
Okay, got it. As in, if there are one or two top requests, right, feature requests or things we can do, what would they be? Maybe we can wait till the end of the call, and I'm sure our rest of the attendees in the webinar will jump on it too. But definitely a question for Giuseppe and Vistabeam. what would be the two things in your mind that's the most important for you to continue successfully rolling out this product? Giuseppe, you want to go first since I have an idea
Sure.
what you're going to say?
Sure. My first request is about latency. We would like to see a lower latency on ePMP platform. This is a highly requested features from our users, so this is the same for us. And another another thing it would be nice to see is um, more bandwidth on the same channel, but is a physical limit, so can do so
Right.
much.
Okay. So yours are latency because you have gaming customers, and then
Yes.
whatever we do to squeeze more bandwidth out of the same channel bandwidth. Gotcha.
Yes. Latency is very important for us. We have lots of gamers, so they always ask for lower latency on our network, and we can do all we can do with backbones and so on, but on the ePMP platform we can see 10 to 15 milliseconds. So it's the part where there is more latency.
Right. So 2.5 millisecond frame support will be there in 4.5 release. That's one way to reduce some latency while sacrificing a tiny bit of throughput. But I will also say that overall, the ePMP scheduler is designed in a massive point-to-multipoint system to keep the TCP throughput relatively high, but in some cases sacrificing latency. So that's why we have things like ability to lock the highest modulation so that we don't keep trying and retransmitting packets to get higher throughput. We will elaborate more on that in the future, but I think we're going to start taking a look at how to maybe present an option where you can optimize latency where it's important and sacrifice throughput and vice versa. Some type of tunable item.
It would be great, but 3000 has already a better latency than 2000, so I can see the improvement.
Right. Matt, did you guys have a couple of items that you wanted to highlight?
Yeah, so one I think would be helpful if we had some better tools to figure out how to manage the MU-MIMO, to figure out how to do the groupings better, and then if there was a way to kind of collect like RF temperature of different channels of spectrum over a period of time, that would maybe be useful to help us figure out when there's interference or the most optimal channel for us to use. I think it'd be nice to have some tools like that to help with planning. Despite the fact we're in rural areas, we have some very, very crowded RF. We're rural enough that there have been a lot of wireless ISPs, so we've got situations where we're already running into neg 50 and neg 60 noise floors in a lot of places, and being able to figure out the best channel to operate in and how to optimize to get the most performance out of that channel would be helpful. The platform seems to be really good as far as being pretty tolerant of interference and scaling up, but it would be nice to have a little bit more tool set to use to be able to optimize for that.
All right. So on the first one, Matt, I'm not sure if you're aware, but go ahead and take a look at our download section. There's a capacity planning tool that has been updated for 3000. It's the beginning between Link Planner and the capacity planning tool. You can start understanding MU-MIMO capacity and how to plan your network. So take a look at that capacity planning tool. I think it'll be quite helpful to set you in the right direction. And the second comment, I understand it, and I think it's to some extent there's a holy grail solution where every SM, every AP can collect interference information over time and give you recommendations, right? But in the short term, we'll start thinking internally whether there's some type of background scripts that can run at downtime for SMs to also go into spectrum analyzer mode, collect the information and send it to something. But it's certainly an interesting problem to solve. So thank you for those.
We're coming close to the end here, so if there's other questions people have, you can put them in here. But maybe I'll just kind of open the floor to you, Giuseppe. Where do you see your growth coming from in the future, and what are the challenges that you see in achieving that growth? And it can be anything from technology to marketing to finding new customers. Where do you guys where's your mind at as far as growing your business? I'll throw that to you first, Giuseppe.
Okay. I think our main challenge today is regarding 5 GHz spectrum and interferences. There isn't so much space in this unlicensed band, so it's difficult for us to reach high modulations to offer more bandwidth. So licensed operators with LTE and other technologies are also our competitors, and we are competing with fiber providers which are offering plans up to 200 megabits per second here. But our biggest advantage over them is our support and reliability and quality of the networks, thanks to ePMP platform. And our network is all under our complete control, so we are very fast in solving equipment failures, and that's very appreciated from our customers. But I'm optimistic about the future because fiber is an opportunity to bring more bandwidth to the towers. So in the future, we can offer higher speed to customers using ePMP platform and benefits from multi-user MIMO from 3000. We are constantly reducing sector distances from our users, so we can achieve higher modulations and use wider channels, so we can do higher speed to users. Hope this makes sense.
Yeah, that's great. Thanks for that. And Matt, Drew, your comments for the future? We may have lost the guys from Vistabeam on the bridge here. So I want to thank everyone for joining today, especially for our guests.
We just got back on.
Oh,
we just got back
on. Okay. All right. Yeah. So did you hear the question then? Did you guys hear the question from Vistabeam about really what do you see the challenges going forward, and what do you see the sort of the opportunities, and how are you addressing those as far as adding new customers and growing your business?
Yeah, so I think it's interesting to point out before I talk about the future, just the fact that we were not a Cambium shop up until about a year and a half ago. We didn't have any Cambium deployed in our network, and now we're up to about probably 40%, 50% of our network is Cambium, and that's the direction we're going in for all of our future deployments. And I think what we've seen is the fact that we're able to get some faster speeds out there, and one of the big things we're trying to get to is to deliver at least 25 meg speeds to all of our customers. And we have a very, very rural area, so there's not a lot of choices for people. So one of the things we're trying to do is to make sure we can get as much of that out to as many people as possible, and then start filling in the faster speeds in areas where we've got more backhaul. And we feel like the Cambium platform is the right one to be able to get that speed out to some very, very rural places that haven't had very good choices or very many other alternatives. So that's kind of the direction we're going in, and then we'll definitely try and do some more of the higher speed stuff in the more dense areas. But the main thing for us is, I think, extending that 25 meg out as far out as we can get, and then filling in the places where there's more demand for it.
All right, well, that's great, and we appreciate the the endorsement and business there with coming on board as a Cambium customer. So we really do appreciate that, value that as we continue to develop these products. So I wanted to again thank our guests, Matt, Drew. Really appreciate you jumping on. Giuseppe, I know it's end of your day in Italy, so we appreciate you getting on the call here and
you're welcome.
And offering your insights to your deployment. And for those that joined on the audience side, this will be recorded, has been recorded, and will be available for replay on our community. And of course, if you have questions and want to make comments about the product, the community is a great place to do that. We are always on there and checking out the feedback that we get from customers. So it's a great way to get kind of that dialogue going with the development team and the business team here at Cambium as we progress in the roadmap. So again, thanks for joining the webinar. We'll call it a close and look to talk to you guys down the road. Thanks again.